wake up in the morning with Logos, my company host. Hi, I am Logos Laura from the beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago. And this is our segment for you, shared for you, with love and with peace of mind. Now, our topic today of interest is setting boundaries in relationship. Boundaries? Yes, boundaries. Boundaries in relationship. So, there are relationships that do not have any boundaries because the couple never thought of having a boundary or having any boundaries set up. So, but every relationship needs a boundary. But we're speaking about a marriage relationship that needs to set boundaries. So, what are some of the boundaries that you need to set? First, what is a boundary? A boundary is a barrier you shouldn't cross because it's a no entry zone. And a boundary is also a protection for a location or property or something of value. A boundary is also something that could protect you from endangering yourself. So there are many aspects to boundaries, but in relationship, what are boundaries? Maybe you have a relationship and you have no boundaries at all. That is a very high, high environment for disaster and for broken communication and many things that happen. So, what are some of the barriers we need to have in a relationship of a marriage? First, you have to distinguish your wife. Your wife must be distinct, or your husband will be distinct. When you walk in a room as a couple, this is a couple of one. This is not a couple that I could infiltrate one or the other. So it should be that oneness and everything that you do, even in your presentation, without words. Without words, people should be able to say this is a nice couple and this is a couple that you can't just come in there and weasel your way in to cause disruption. So boundaries are what we set up for ourselves. So first, in a relationship, you have to know what are the boundaries you have. You alone cannot have that boundary in a relationship and your husband don't know, and the husband have boundaries and you have no idea what is his boundaries. So those boundaries need to be clearly defined, and it's best to do that before a marriage takes place, to define the boundaries or the territories of that marriage during counseling or during courtship or getting to know one another. Once you have decided to take that relationship to another level of seriousness, right, of commitment, and a level of expected trust, because there's trust and expected trust. You can expect trust, but there's no trust there. That is your expectation. But to have it worded or shared is a different aspect. What you might be thinking, your partner might be totally on a totally different planet of thought. So back to boundaries in relationship. First, you must set um, marital boundaries. Marital boundaries is this: wife, our private space is our home, our sacred space is our bedroom. So our bedroom is not to allow anyone to come into that sacred space, be it friend, family, foe. Why? Because that's our holy place. That's a place that we have our intimacy, and that's a place where we have our personal things there. So let's keep that room private for us. Do you agree? Yes. You don't agree? Why you don't agree? Well, I want my mother to come in to be able to come in the room if she wants. But why does mommy have to come in the room? It's our private space. It's our bedroom. It's where we have our personal things. But I don't think that we should limit in-laws from coming in and so. So that is something that you have to agree on. Because then you have to give reasons why. Okay, husband, let me tell you why I don't want anyone to come into my private space. You see, I have my personal things here, and these are my personal things, my diaries here, or this is my negligees. I don't want them to see all of me without me exposing myself. So they should be able to tell how I hang my clothes, what I do. That's sacred and private space, right? And remember that beautiful gift that I give you. I don't want everyone seeing that beautiful gift. That's for you. That's I bought that for you. Yeah. So the discussion, there has to be a discussion of some sort. So is the marriage bed a place for everybody to enter? No. Marriage bed is for the husband and the wife. That's a sacred space. and it should also be considered a holy place because God like marriage to the church. Yeah, the bride. So he said, husband, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. Christ gave himself for the entire church. Yeah, the entire body of Christ God gave himself for. And therefore he likened marriage to that which he had done on the cross. And therefore you should look at your marriage as a very sacred, holy grounds. What is another set of boundaries that we should look at for marriages? Putting barriers where there's a distinction that your mother is your mother and she's not your wife, and that your wife is not your mother. So there's supposed to be barriers of distinction. How could you identify those things? You of yourself as a spouse could write down those things before you get married, or write it down and share that with your significant other. Now, if the person is not most of the things that you shared on that list, if all they disagree with, then you should think twice if you want to marry that person. All right? Because if they're disagreeing on simple things as setting boundaries, and what are those boundaries, and there's a total disagreement, nothing that you have shared or he has shared, you agree with it, then you have to look a little closer to see if that is your partner, or that is come back, or that you're able to have a marriage without friction on a daily basis. So these are things to look into. So boundaries, you're already in a marriage, so you never thought of setting boundaries, and now you are being told or shared how to set boundaries and why you should. Okay, what about boundaries in terms of work, in terms of work ethics, in terms of the husband or the wife is working with someone else, um, and that person relationship is very close, even close beyond work. Well, their trust has to be a factor in setting boundaries. So it's either you trust your spouse or you don't trust your spouse. And you could trust your spouse, but then there are certain boundaries that you would have already discussed and highlighted that you would not like to be crossed. Right? So you have to list those things. Every relationship is different and everyone will agree on something different, but you have to set those boundaries that you know that should be set. Now there's boundaries of disrespect where sometimes a person disrespect one of the spouse and it goes unnoticed and it's to repeat. Sometimes those disrespect come from in-laws, or it comes from friends who think that they know your spouse long before you, and they have that right and to show up anytime, to call anytime, to um, to just have a right over you, yeah, either partner. Um, those are things that you have to look into in a relationship because before you got married, yes, you had friends and you had family. You don't stop having them, but they have to know now that you have a partner, and that most of your time will be spent with your partner building a relationship, not building a friendship, building a relationship, not building a friendship outside of the marriage, but building a relationship inside of the marriage, right? So boundaries should be really clearly defined. There are boundaries in terms of space. What about space? Private space or spaces that you cherish or you consider as how part of building a relationship and keeping that space with your children and your family. Um, some people would like to live a different life. They don't want anybody to just drop into their home anytime they want. Call first. Some people prefer you call first. Maybe culture wise, might be different for certain cultures. But sometimes it's good to be to get a heads up so that you could be prepared. Yeah, and you call first. Would like to pass. Is it okay? Because people have different lifestyles. Don't just assume that they're just waiting to receive you with open arms. Yeah. So there are many things that could be looked into in a relationship to set boundaries. Communication is one of the key things that should be set up in a marriage. So there are marriages with no communication. There's absolutely no communication at all. So meaning the spouse may do things and not even share it with the husband at all, and he just has to figure it out. And it might be a little tedious doing so. And also sometimes the husband may do things and not even never share it with the wife. And that might be a little tedious to figure it out all of the time. So therefore communication is important. What kind of communication? Um, We know that male and female is different because females might be more detailed and they might give you more details, and men might just be very short and to the point. However, communication is necessary. Honey, I'll be home a little later than expected. The wife may need a little more in terms of, okay, well, a little more detail as to why. Yeah. And the um, other wife may call. She's running later than she's normally home, and she will call and say, I got caught up in traffic, or I'm at the grocery, or whatever. But there's a communication, so at least there's no worry um, by keeping in touch. Yeah. So things that you may think might be trivial, or you don't really need to talk about it, that might be the thing that you need to talk about in your relationship. Just bring it up, by the way, for example, and see how the feedback is with your spouse and see how that works out. It's good to set boundaries in a relationship so that trust and maintaining those boundaries set would be relevant to the relationship. Um, Boundaries in relationship, taking for granted each other. Now, observation is a very good part of a relationship, to observe what it is the husband like that he voice or share that he doesn't feel comfortable with. Sometimes don't feel comfortable around some of your friends. Might be uncomfortable. Sometimes it's not good to please the friend to make your husband uncomfortable. So it's better that your husband is comfortable and that you are comfortable as well, because of a partnership and a relationship and an agreement and an understanding, right? So when I speak, it may seem like everything is easy, A, B, and C. It's totally not like that, but practicing and communication will help in that relationship. Everyone will tell you, or most people will tell you, a relationship of communication, it goes a long way, because then you are being heard, you are being listened to, and it's not just, excuse me, it's not just your opinion alone that goes down the road with everything, right? It's good to write the things. It's good to write at least 10 things and give it to your spouse, each other, exchange it. 10 things you don't like that your spouse do. I laugh because we hope that doesn't cause friction or argument, but you write down, honey, can I write 10 things you do that I don't like on a daily basis? Habits. And also, can I write 10 things you do that I love? Yes. And please read the 10 that I don't like first, and then you read the 10 that I love about you. Vice versa. Wife, there are 10 things I don't like about you. I don't like when you interrupt me when I'm speaking. I don't like when you I don't like when you don't say where you're going and you just dress and you go and you say I'm going with the girls. So you can list those 10 things. How You can also say how it makes you feel, and so that's a form of communication as well. Um, there are a lot of things you can do to improve relationship and marital boundaries. Yes, the key is boundaries. Keep those boundaries alive. Let people know that this is your spouse. And you don't, without saying that is your spouse, by the presentation and the way you treat each other in public. Um, it's always good also to ex-girlfriends and ex-boyfriend. It's always good to have that boundaries conversation where exes are concerned. So if you were in a relationship where you had an ex-husband or an ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, and they are still in communication with your significant other, your spouse, and they show they intentionally um make the new spouse or the new fiance feel, well, they act territorial then, or they always make conversations to make you feel that you don't know much about this person that I know, and they always try to highlight treasured moments of the past. These things do happen. What do you do in such an instance? The spouse who has the um, previous relationship need to be sensitive and need to know what lines to be drawn. So I always believe that boundaries should be clearly defined. So if the wife know what the boundary is that the husband has set, That is defined there, and she needs to respect it, or they come to a mutual agreement or understand. Vice versa. So when the outside person from the marriage, not in the marriage, but they have a relationship with one of the or both, um, they need to know that those boundaries are not going to be crossed. How do you tell them? The moment it's supposed to be a red flag if it's crossed. So one of the spouse supposed to not allow a girlfriend to disrespect your wife or disrespect your fiance, ex girlfriend, vice versa. How do you handle that? You could in front of you and a person say with all due respect you're being a little you're disrespecting my wife there. I don't think that's a comfortable conversation that you're bringing up now, whatever it is. But someone need to take the stand, especially if you are not the one that is feeling embarrassed also. And don't be too embarrassed um to not be able to say something, because it can continue and you'll be hurting the present or the significant. So you have to use so much wisdom where because it's now crowded intellect space. So wisdom has to prevail in everything. And sometimes it's always good to apply wisdom in relationship. It's always good to apply respect for each other, but it's also good to define what respect means to me and what respect means to you. You know, as the songwriter said, respect, Arita, find out what it means to me. Yeah. So respect to me may mean something of great significance, and that to you means absolutely nothing. So respect each other, but let those things be clearly defined and understood, right? In a relationship, talk it out. As I said, there are relationships that some people say they can't talk because the man is always drunk. He's just gonna listen, and if he's listening on the toxic, on the alcohol, he's not gonna remember the next day. How do you deal with things like that? If the person can write, please leave a note. Can read this, leave a note, or write. Do a voice recording, something. Find a creative way to get your message across. What about relationships where the spouse do not want counsel, don't want to go for counsel if there's need be? Sometimes you just need not a third party, but you just need someone to not be biased and listen to both sides and give actually a bridge the gap that is open. But relationships are healthy. Marriages of God, marriages can work. Marriages is a work in progress on a daily basis. Forgiveness is the key to a successful marriage. Honesty and trust, commitment, and openness. Openness. Also, the key to a successful marriage is God. Without God in the marriage, there's miscarriages all around. Um, some may ask the question, you may hear this, there's no perfect marriage. I believe there's a blessed marriage is blessed, right? Doesn't have to be perfect, but blessed. It's already blessed by God, the union blessed by God. And that's a good start because it's blessed by God. Once it's blessed by God, it's a good start. And also, once you practice the things of God, like one of the key things to guard in your relationship is fornication and also adultery, right? How you're guarding against that, you have to take a conscious decision that you have made a vow to love each other, cherish each other, and you shouldn't break that vow. And if you break that vow, you should confess to God and ask God to deliver you from that spirit um of that spirit of I'm going to say this word is coming to my mind, but I don't think it's applicable to this. Um, that spirit of mistrust, that spirits enter relationships and cause a lot of additional friction and things. Sometimes a misunderstanding, simplicity of things. So really, God needs to be in the relationship, and also too, we need to guard thoughts, guard the God have boundaries. Boundaries are God's set up in your relationship, so you can know when something is off. Um, if we set certain boundaries in a relationship, we'll eliminate a lot of problems from happening and from reoccurring as such. Respect is one of the highest thing that you could put it in terms of your marriage. Respect for each other, respect for self, respect even when your spouse is not around. You have that high respect and regard. Um, Be careful if you're bad speak talking your spouse without someone else. If you're sharing vulnerable moments, bedroom moments with someone who you maybe you don't know is actually lusting after your spouse, or your spouse is lusting after, and you sharing certain things could be sharing the ammunition to the enemy itself. So all these things you have to be guided and mindful of, where trust is concerned in all forms of relationship. And God, with your relationship, have boundaries. If you never had boundaries in your relationship, the first thing I'll tell you to do is you write down what you don't like first, and make a list of 10 things in my marriage that I would like to see God deal with and change. And if it is that, it can be simple. It could be your husband not communicating. It could be he's not calling when he's out late. So you're worried sick. You actually take up the phone and call the police. He's missing, and then he shows up. But he never communicated. He never thought it was wise to. Never think it. And in probably in his mind, it, he didn't think it serious, or right, as a wife may think it serious. So there's so many things, but through communication, through upbringing too, you have to look at the background, something, their cultural difference. You married somebody from another state, another country, and there are so much cultural differences. What you deem here as a crime over there is a high five, right? So there's so many things, and um all will not be applicable to you. But I hope that you start setting boundaries in your relationship. And for those of you who already have boundaries in your relationship, please let it be known. Because for years you might be in our relationship and never thought of setting boundaries. Boundaries for mother-in-law, yes. Boundaries for the in-laws. Boundaries for the workers. Boundaries for the children. Boundaries. Just set boundaries. Private space. It's private space. Yeah. So God bless you, and thank you for listening to Logos, my co-host in the morning. I hope this session has blessed you and has encouraged you to set boundaries in your relationship. God bless.